Welcome to Parenting Successful Teens, the podcast that cuts through the overwhelm and stress of this phase and offers parents simple, practical, cognitive, science-based strategies for keeping their teens on track. Join Master Coach and real-life mom, Allie Irwin, to talk about real teens, real problems, and the skills it takes to raise successful adults.
Hello, everybody. We just got back from an amazing vacation. We were celebrating our 25th wedding anniversary with a trip to Costa Rica. It was so amazing, seriously. Whitewater rafting through rainforest, canyons, and coffee tasting and chocolate tasting and adventure and amazing food, and a really fun book that I read. I bought a couple of fiction books, which I don't read a ton of fiction, but I knew that I was going to have a lot of downtime, while we were traveling. And in the book that I bought, the main character spends most of the book really feeling like an outcast and believing like that his main love interest could never love him because he's such a weirdo. At the end of the book, he realizes that most people don't feel like they know what they're doing and are just kind of faking it. And that his main problem wasn't that he was unlovable, but that like his own opinion of himself was getting in the way of having what he wanted. And that got me thinking about imposter syndrome as it relates to moms. And so that's what I want to talk to you about this week. Why you might actually be an amazing mom and still feel like you aren't. So I dug out my Harvard Business Reviews from back in the day of my corporate coaching and looked up imposter syndrome just to see if the definition fit as well as I thought it did. And this is what Harvard Business Review had to say. They said, imposter syndrome is defined as a collection of feelings of inadequacy that persist despite evidence of success. Imposters suffer from chronic self-doubt and a sense of fraudulence that overrides any feelings of success or external proof of their competence. That's what I see in my practice a lot. I talk to a lot of moms who, by many measures, are doing a great job. But they have this one area that they're struggling with. That feeling of struggle in that one area is overriding all of the other areas that they're successful in. Okay? They're doing really well in a lot of areas with their kids, but because there's this one area that they're having a lot of trouble with, they're negating all of that and feeling like they're screwing up their kids. Why is that? Imposter syndrome. Okay. It's the same thing that I saw in my corporate practice where employees were doing really well in a whole bunch of areas, but because they weren't seeing themselves as the competent employee that they were, they created all this unnecessary stress. And then all of that unnecessary stress and pressure actually made them perform less well in their jobs, creating the exact opposite of what they were trying to do with all the pressure that they were putting on themselves. The thing about imposter syndrome is if you have it, you don't know that you have it. You just really believe your own story that you're not doing a good job. Okay, you are not a reliable judge if you have imposter syndrome. I'm going to read you some of the symptoms that Harvard Business Review gave for the work version of this and see if any of this sounds familiar to you as a mom. So their list of symptoms was a lack of self-confidence, negative self-talk, dwelling on past mistakes, not feeling good enough, anxiety, and feelings of inadequacy. Okay, did any of those ring true? Because before I learned the coaching tools that I used on myself when I was healing myself, that I now use with my clients. Like before I learned all those tools, like I definitely had that for sure. And when I look back, it was kind of crazy because I thought my kids were amazing. Like even when we were struggling, I thought they were amazing. I just thought I was a really shitty mom. And I don't know exactly how I thought the math of that worked. Like, I guess I just thought I got lucky with amazing kids and I was trying my hardest not to screw them up and feeling like I was failing all the time. I don't know how the math of it works that you can be a shitty mom and have amazing kids, but that's what imposter syndrome does. Okay, if there was something that they were struggling with, I took all the responsibility for that because I thought a good mom would know how to help them. And like a good mom helps solve their kids' problems. So I was taking all the responsibility for anything that was a struggle or a challenge in their life. But anything that they were successful at, like I didn't take any of the credit for that. And so I wasn't able to enjoy their successes. And honestly, I wasn't able to be the kind of mom that I wanted to be because I was constantly ruminating over that thing I said last week that I imagined was damaging their self-esteem and going to ruin their lives. And they were going to hate me and be in therapy forever. And oh my gosh, I feel so sad for the version of me that struggled with all of that. So we're going to tackle imposter syndrome so that you don't have to struggle with it by breaking down. Imposter syndrome is based on the belief that you're not a good enough mother. What I did, beliefs are really just a series of thoughts that you're really good at thinking. Okay, beliefs happen when you repeat a thought often enough that it just becomes true to you. Okay, that's what a belief is. This belief is actually a couple of thoughts kind of tangled together like a tangled ball of yarn. So what I did is I kind of teased them apart and categorized them into sort of three main, like big buckets of thoughts. And I want you to listen and see if any of these sound like things that you think are true. Okay, if you have any of these thoughts. Because in order to change your beliefs, in order to change your opinion of yourself as a mother to a more accurate one, what we want to do is change the thoughts that make up those beliefs. Okay, so we talked last week about how our thoughts create our feelings. And if you are feeling like you're an inadequate mother, there's some thought you're having that's creating that feeling. And what we want to do is identify what those thoughts are so that we can change them. And change them to thoughts that are more supportive of you as a mother so that you can actually become the kind of mother that you want to be. So here's the first kind of main category of thoughts. It's something around, it's important not to fail as a mother. Okay, it's important to get mothering right. And this is a really, really common thought. I looked up that famous quote by Jackie Kennedy. I don't know if you remember this one, where she said, "If you bungle raising your children, I don't think whatever else you do matters very much." Oh, it's such a pretty thought for mothers to have, but it's so dangerous. Like it's so harmful because it creates so much pressure. Think about that. If you believe that thought, that if you screw up as a mom, nothing else you do matters, like that just creates so much pressure in an already complex job of raising kids. What's funny to me is that thought doesn't change based on your kid's behavior. Mothers who have kids who are really struggling in multiple areas, struggling with school or drugs or maybe an abusive relationship or they're cutting or any of those things, like those mothers feel like that's really important not to fail as a mom. But on the other end of the spectrum, I work with moms whose kids are doing amazingly well and don't get into their first choice dream Ivy League school with a big enough scholarship to, like, they even get in, but they don't get a big enough scholarship. And the mom feels like she's failed because her super high achieving child can't go to their dream school. Okay, so it almost doesn't matter how your kid is turning out. out, you can have the thought that it's really important not to fail your kids. It's not based on an external circumstance. So it's important to notice that you're having that thought. That thought, I don't want to screw up my kids, while it sounds virtuous, it isn't actually helping you be a good mom. Okay, it's only creating a ton of pressure. When you're feeling a ton of pressure to never make a mistake at a job that it's impossible to get right 100% of the time, like all that does is create so much more pressure in your family. And if you're believing that it's important that you never make a mistake as a mother and that anything that you do wrong, you're going to think about and punish yourself by thinking about it for weeks on end. And moms will come to me in these calls with things that happened years ago that they're still ruminating about. And if you believe that about yourself, you can't help but teach that to your children, that it's important that they never fail. That's definitely not the message that you want to pass on. Okay. It makes you more tense, uptight, naggy, controlling mother in the current. And in the future, it sets your kids up to put that same kind of extreme self-pressure on themselves. Okay. And we're definitely seeing that with huge rises in childhood anxiety. Okay. And it all stems from that pretty sounding thought that we want to do right by our kids. We just want to be the best mom we can be. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be a good mom, but if you think you're a great mom and you just want to keep getting better and better at that, that's a very different place from feeling like a bad mom who needs to get better or else she's going to screw up her kids. Okay. Can you hear the difference between the two? Like one is essentially a positive thought that is exciting and has almost like a playful feel to it because you just love your kids so much and you just want to get better and better at something that you're already good at, versus thinking that you're terrible at it and you're probably screwing up your kids and they're probably going to end up in therapy. They're going to probably end up hating you just like you hated your mom at that age. And she, like taking it to all those extremes. Those are different places. And we don't want to put that kind of self-pressure on ourselves as mothers. It doesn't help us be the kind of moms we want to be. Okay, so that's the first thought. If you are thinking it's important not to fail, it's important to get it right, or any version of that, and it feels terrible and pressury, that's a sign of imposter syndrome. Okay, thought number 2, I'm going to speed up because I didn't mean to make this podcast go so long. I feel like other mothers have got it figured out in a way that I haven't, and I just have no idea what the right thing is to do half the time. If you have this one, you are likely looking around at the other soccer moms or the other moms in your neighborhood or maybe other moms in the family, and you look at their kids' behavior and you're imagining a scenario. You're taking the fact that their children are well-dressed and polite or have gotten into a particular school and making it mean that those moms know something that you don't know. And essentially what you're doing with this one is you're taking someone else's outsides, okay, that bright and shiny exterior, and comparing it to your inside. Right? You're imagining that in other homes, kids are happy to bring up all the Christmas decorations and they're all gathering around and making gingerbread houses. Whereas your teen is like locked in their room on Instagram and, only comes out to eat. Okay. You're comparing this fantasy you have of how other families are with the truth of how your family is. Okay, you're comparing the fantasy to your truth. And that's just, don't do that. Okay, it's not true. Everyone's family is struggling in certain areas and doing well in other areas, just like yours is. Okay, you're totally fine. Other mothers have not figured out something that you don't know how to do. Okay, the third thought is not enjoying your successes. Okay. When we do well as a mom and we write it off like that doesn't matter somehow, like we make it through the morning, we get them up and off to school without a fight, and we write it off like it doesn't matter. Okay. We're not noticing when we do something right. We're only noticing when we screw up. Okay. That's contributing to imposter syndrome. If you are doing that, you are probably a way better mom than you think you are. Okay. Or if your kids seem to naturally do something well, and you can't see me, but I'm putting it in air quotes because I'm thinking of how, like, I thought I just got lucky that my kids were naturally pretty healthy eaters, and they were both kind of naturally pretty good cooks. And when I believed that about myself and about my kids, I was fully discounting the approximately 10,000 hours I spent taking them to community farms. We used to belong to one of those farms where you get like a bucket of produce every week, and then we would go home and cook it and try all these new recipes. Like, I was fully discounting all the thousands of hours I spent with them when they were little, baking cookies and growing vegetables on our deck and modeling healthy eating and having dinner, like tons of dinners for friends and family where we had people and like cooked and did different things. Wasn't noticing all the effort I put into transferring my love of food to them and just pretending like that happened naturally. But anything that they struggled with, I definitely noticed that and felt like that was my fault. Okay, I mentioned earlier that I had a huge problem with people pleasing. Anytime I spotted my kids, even just being a regular amount of accommodating with their friends, I was super sensitive to my kids getting taken advantage of. So untangling that thought, when I started to untangle that, I started to take credit for all the ways that I was a great mom. I'm not suggesting that you take credit for your kids' successes. What I'm suggesting you take credit for is all the ways that you supported them on their way to creating that success. Those are kind of the big three buckets I see in my practice. One is the idea to get it right, that it's super important to get it right. It's super important to never fail or never make a mistake as a mother. And if you do, you should definitely beat yourself up about it for weeks, maybe years. The second bucket is this idea that other mothers are doing it better than I am. And if you were only a mother like they were, then you wouldn't be having the problems that you're having. And bucket number 3 is the idea that when our kids succeed, it's because of them. And when they fail, it's because of us, something that we did wrong. If you have any of those 3 buckets of thoughts, I want you to start recognizing them for what they are. I want you to start, what they are is nonsense. They're unhelpful thoughts. And those thoughts are blocking you from seeing all the ways that you're already a great mom. And if you're resisting this, if you're thinking, but if I think I'm a great mom, like then I'll just get lazy. Or if I think I'm a great mom, like what motivation will I have to not snap at them when I'm feeling hungry? Or I don't know, you're like making it mean that if you give yourself credit for being a good mom, that somehow you will stop being a good mom. Like that's part of that thought pattern. Resisting seeing yourself as a good mom is what's keeping you from being a good mom. Okay, it's a little bit of a faulty thought loop. And I want you to start recognizing those thoughts now, okay? Because they're nonsense. They're not helpful. They're actually harming you. They're harming your ability to be a good mom. But I want you to recognize those thoughts and not beat yourself up. I want you to give yourself some compassion because there are so many messages out there telling you that anything that goes wrong with your family is your fault and that you should definitely take responsibility for it. Okay, give yourself some compassion. We have been trained to believe things about ourselves as mothers that are just not true, to put pressure on ourselves that is just not helpful. Okay, we are humans in complex human relationships who are definitely going to make mistakes. We're definitely going to do things that we wish we hadn't done. That's just part of being human. Everyone feels like they could be doing a better job. So that feeling like you did something wrong is a very unreliable marker. That feeling really is just an opportunity to give yourself compassion, not to beat yourself up. So I want you to start noticing those thoughts and plucking them out like a chin hair. Okay? Those thoughts are that distasteful to me. They're unattractive, they are pointless, and they've got to go. And if you need help, I want you to know that I've got you. I'm here. You can send me an email anytime with your questions at Allie@allieirwin.com. Or even better, we can schedule a time to talk about specifically what's going on with your family and how to apply these tools to your specific situation and how I might be able to help you. And if that's intriguing, you can get a link to my calendar. You can find it on my website, or even easier, you can text the phrase "talk to Allie," like it's all one word, to the number 44222. And if you're already on my mailing list, just use the same email that you're already signed up with, or else you'll start getting double emails, and nobody wants that. But you do want to take advantage of this offer if any of this rang true for you. Okay, these thoughts are pernicious. They're in there because we've most likely been thinking them for years. So if you want to take advantage of that offer, just text "talk to Allie" to the number 44222 and then follow the prompt for your email, and it will just automatically send you a calendar link to your email. I want to close with the idea that you are doing a good job. I see you. You've got this. Have a great week.